Pay your dollars.
Let's get started. Call the meeting room to order. Welcome everyone to our November 19 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Staff, will you call the roll?
Seltzer. Here. Macklin.
Here?
Buchanan. Jorns.
Yes.
French.
Here.
Gertson.
Here. Thank you for all of you joining today. We'll be short one that Bruce will not be joining us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. We have one case before us to protect the rights of all parties involved in order to establish an orderly fact-finding procedure. The Reno County Board of Zoning Appeals follows a specific fact-finding procedure which is contained in the handouts in your chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. All decisions by the BZA are final. Decisions may be appealed to the district court within 30 days of the decision. We'd like to formally open the hearing regarding case number 2020-12, a request by Sidney and Mary Holmes for a special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to construct a 40 by 60 by 10 foot accessory structure and permit a total of 2,400 square feet of accessory structures. The total square footage of all accessory structures exceeds 2,000 square feet maximum permitted on land zoned R-1 rural residential district. The property is located at 8014 North Hendrick Street. Do any of the board members have conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Has any of the board members had any outside contact with the applicant?
No.
Okay. Would the applicant please step forward and present the facts within the case?
All right, I'm Sid Holmes. Mary and I are building a metal building to keep various toys in on the property. We've got just short of 15 acres. We're a significant legal distance away from our septic system. And other than that, it's a 10-foot tall building, so no height. I'm probably the only neighbor within a mile and a half that doesn't have a metal building already, so I got to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, for sure. Understood.
Other than that, it's pretty basic, 2,400 square feet. Okay. Any questions?
Board have any questions for the applicant?
You mentioned no utilities to the building?
Right. Well, no, there'll be electricity to it.
There will be electricity?
Just extended from the house.
Will that be underground or?
Yes.
Yeah. And
No inside plumbing at all.
if it comes to pass down the road that you or a successor wants to put plumbing in there, that really complicates the things. You're aware of that.
Yeah.
The time to do that is now, if it's possible.
Expensive and, being short to the house, I think I can make a trip inside rather than the old Outback method.
Your successor may not have that stamina.
That's right. It won't be a full man cave, let's put it that way. There may be a refrigerator with some beverages in it, but other than that,
All of those toys belong to you, or did your wife?
they're all hers. I just
You don't really believe that, do you?
I just keep them clean.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now hear from staff.
Mark Von Atchen, County Planner. Good evening, board here. So as you heard, this was a request to construct a 40 by 60 accessory structure here, which exceeds our 2,000 square foot limit here. If you look at your zoning map that I provided to you in your package, you'll see that the location of the building is located west of the existing house. The owner has like a little bit of a circle driveway that kind of leads up to the house. However, I would point out to the board that there's like a large stand of trees that are in there, so really that building would probably not be too visible from any of the traffic on Hendricks or from the neighbors that are across the street. No commercial uses will be allowed in the building, as he had stated in his write-up. Also, if you would take note here on property number 20, which is located to the south of where he lives, you may recall in 2017 that we had another special exception request, and we approved a 60 by 80 foot building on that property of a little bit similar acreage that we had, so did not have any issues with that one. Staff did not see any issues with this request at all. It is again for residential use, and so staff recommends approval of the request based off of the three factors that you see in here. We put those standard factors in all of our cases that says that it's just for a 40 by 60 building or 2,400 square foot should you want to choose to adjust the dimensions a little bit. Can't do any commercial or industrial in the building without a conditional use permit. And then the accessory structure can't be used as a residence without approval from my office. And so we sent letters to all the people that you see surround that area, and we received no written comments from the public. The health department did comment on the case, and you can see her comments in your packet as well. So with that, I'd stand for any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for staff? Okay, Mark?
Thank you.
Does the board have any further questions for the applicant or the staff? Applicant have anything to add?
No.
Okay, good. Not, the public hearing is not, whoop, sorry.
Comments from the public?
Comments from the public. Thank you for catching that. No comments from the public. Public hearing is now closed. Staff, call the roll, or do we need to discuss anymore?
We need probably a discussion and
Probably ready to roll right
motion
there. I got this other packet of stuff to go through. I've got that on my mind, sorry.
I would move the case number 2020-12, the request by Sidney and Mary Holmes requesting a special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to permit the total square footage of all accessory structures on the parcel to exceed the 2,000 square foot limit in the R1 Rural Residential District at 8014 North Hendrick Street be approved, allowing a structure of 40 by 60 by 10 or 2,400 square feet in size at the location shown with the application and subject to conditions listed above based upon the reasons stated in the staff report as heard in this public hearing.
I second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Now, we're up to where I want to be. Staff, call the roll.
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes.
Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. Staff, you have any other business before the BZA?
I have no business for the BZA, Mr. Chairman.
I entertain a motion to adjourn BZA.
So moved.
Second.
Moved.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate you
Second.
participating.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
All right.
All opposed, same sign. BZA is adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll wait for you.
No, don't wait for me. You just leave it at the front counter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, call the meeting room back to order. We'll begin the November 19 Planning Commission, Reno County Planning Commission meeting. Staff, call the roll.
Seltzer,
Here.
Macklin,
Here.
Buchanan, Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Here.
and Gertson.
Here. Looks like we have two sets of minutes that we need to, do we need to Staff question, do we need to approve those in two different motions, or can we do those all at once?
It can all be in one unless there are specific changes that a board member, has on a certain set of minutes. So, I don't know if you want to have any discussion on that, or if anybody has any questions before.
Any questions on the minutes from October 15 and then again on October 13? None, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
I might also add, as I read the minutes, it was a superb refresher of what we talked about last month. Thank you.
Mark did a good job.
Thank my assistant for that. Yeah.
Okay.
She's the one that did that.
The tape recorder works, you mean?
The tape recorder worked.
Tape recorder work is right. Well, we have, before us, we have one piece of old business and one case of new business. We need a motion to open up the old business. Is that how we need to work?
Yeah,
Motion to open the old business.
take it off the table.
Take it off, the motion to take off the table.
I
Yeah.
so moved.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. We need to call the roll on this one, Mark.
No, you don't want to.
All in favor of taking the old business off the table, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we're gonna now bring off the table case 2020-09, a request by Reno County Planning Commission for a text amendment of the table of contents page, Article 15-105, parentheses 14, April 2016 edition of the Reno County zoning regulations, and creating Article 23, commercial wind energy conversion systems for the April 2016 edition of the Reno County zoning regulations. We've discussed this before at great length a couple different times. This is the next revision after our last conversation, I believe on October 13th. So there are some changes here. As we walk through, we'll kind of do this roundtable like we've done before. If there's any comments that each of the board members would have. Staff, would you like to kind of give us a preface on what you've done to the document?
Sure, so based off of the planning commission's various motions and comments at the last meeting here, staff made those changes that the board requested, and before you tonight is the document with those changes here. What we did, as I think instructed by the board as well, was to cross off, or what we call strike through, the wording that the board did not want to have anymore. And then in red and underlined would be the changes that the board had requested as I understood the board. And so we would ask that the board just kind of review those changes. And if they're acceptable to the board, great, we can accept those changes in the document. If there are other changes, certainly we can do that. We want to make sure we get the wording right. As staff reviewed the document again from the last meeting, we do have some additional suggestions for this board to consider, and so I will present those when we get to that section. Nobody has staff-suggested changes, and so this will be new information to everybody to consider. And then I think at the end of your discussion, I think staff would recommend that you probably table this again so we can provide this board a clean document that you can review one last time in December or at a later date that you guys would want. I think, it's something that you guys should really consider doing, is looking at a clean document with no changes to them, so you know exactly what you're approving.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just start through on paragraphs. Just as we've done before. And please speak up if you have some comments or have some questions. 23-101. 23-102. 103. 103. 104. 105. 106.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we, on paragraph 2, it talks about the setback as determined by tower height and plus 50 feet or what. Have we established somewhere that, in the definitions, that tower height is the total height of the supporting structure, which I would call the tower, and plus the length of the blade that exceeds that tower height?
Yes, we have.
Is that in the definitions, and that can't be challenged or
That's in
confused?
23.
Yeah, 23.5 in the first, up there on top of the page in B.
In my world, the tower is the supporting structure, and the blades are in addition to that. But we mentioned several times the tower height, which is, what we really mean is the tower plus the reach of the blade as well. As long as that's in the definitions, why I'm happy.
Yep, it is. Isn't that? Anything else on 23-106?
I might mention, Mr. Chairman, on number 2, there was some discussion last month on the 1,000-foot notification area, and so staff visited with county attorney on this, and the wording that you see there is what his suggestion is, because in our zoning regulations, we have the notification area being within 1,000 feet, and I believe it was Commissioner Seltzer that talked last, month
Where
about
are you,
maybe
where are you,
switching.
Mark?
On page
23-106 on page 23.3.
Okay.
Item 2.
And so it was his suggestion to put that type of wording in there in case we would ever decide to change our notification area. I know there was a little bit of discussion by this board in the future, changing the notification area to something different than what is statutorily required. By having this verbiage in this section, then if we change the other section of the regulations, it'll automatically refer back to that. And so this was his wording. I don't know if the board specifically said these words here, but, visiting with the county attorney, that was his suggestion to do that.
Yeah, I think, my comment, what I felt that with the scope of a wind farm, the geographic area that it covers, that I felt that, the notification area should be more than 1,000 feet. I think I was proposing 2,000 feet.
Right.
And, you feel from an administrative standpoint, and I appreciate that, it'd be much simpler to have one uniform set of guidelines for all required notifications rather than a separate one for wind farms, which, I understand on that too, but I still, I think the counter was, well, we can always change the notification requirements overall.
Yeah.
But then that would apply to everything. So if we increase that to 2,000 feet for all notifications, that's gonna create a lot more work on you, other than just having an exception
Yeah.
for notifications for a wind farm.
It gives more people a notification, about a particular land use when somebody wants to change the current land use on their property to something other than what is permitted. So it allows more people a notification area, and the majority of them may not have any concerns about that, and they can do what they want with the notice. I think it was mainly just keeping it consistent with what we have right now statutorily and stuff, and if we want to change something, we certainly have the power to change something greater than what the statute
Yeah,
requires.
what I'm just trying to say is if we do that, then that's gonna apply to
It'll apply
all
to everything.
instances of notification that you would be required to do.
Yep.
Rather than just having an increased area isolated for wind farms.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's, of course, we have to change the other regulation
Yeah.
next, and that's a different argument here.
Right,
But,
what that should be.
So, I still maintain that I would like to see a greater notification area for wind farms. And I think it would result in less overall work administratively than trying to go conform to the the current zoning regulations, because those would apply to everything. And if we should try to increase those zoning regulation notification area, then every time we have to have notifications, he's got to notify everybody, say in 2,000 feet instead of just 1,000 feet. Whereas this way, the only time he's going to have an increased notification area would be if there's a wind farm. So it's, to me, it's a lot simpler. And because of the scope of the wind farm, I feel that it should, require a greater notification area. That's still where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with the language as submitted right here.
Thank you.
Any other comments on 23-106? It continues on page 23-4. Doesn't look like staff had any changes there. Twenty-three 107.
I do have one question on that. When we were discussing the noise measurement deal last night, I believe, we came up, agreed on a decibel level, and I think Lisa said you had some language you could provide, Mark, which it appears you did.
Yeah.
And in it, you talk about this LEQ basis. Of course, I'm not an acoustic engineer, I don't think any of us are, and I don't know anything about it. I did a little research on sound measurement bases. And yes, LEQ is one, but I've also found instances where they say that it's not really a very reliable measurement method because it works on a time average, something or other. I'd have to kind of quote it for you, but the LEQ is a time average sound level, and basically one of the instances I read, it indicated that the microphones that are used to measure the sound using the LEQ methodology are subject to contamination because they can only be measured when the wind's blowing, because you got to have the wind turbine moving in order to measure the sound of it. And that wind will affect the diaphragm of these microphones, and that also they can pick up background noise from, vegetation and other things like that. And there are a couple other methodologies that are being used. One has been developed by an international body that has kind of been using in various wind farms. And I just wondered, maybe we want to consider looking at the options that are available for sound measurement rather than coming with just, this one. And I don't know, can you tell us why you chose that?
You'd sent some comments to Mark, asking him a question. He shared it with me, so I went and looked, and you said there was an international standard, and I looked, and it said that is what the manufacturer uses. They use that standard to determine the guaranteed sound level for a particular turbine, but then that information is provided to a third party and put into a model to determine this, whatever, the LEQ at the locations, at a specific location to a specific. So I think they're two different things, but they're used in different ways, is my understanding that. But if you would, if we want to check that to confirm that before we finalize it, I think that'd be okay.
Yeah.
Make sure that we've got the
Yeah,
language
because
correct.
I don't know anything about acoustic sound measurement.
Right.
I'm just trying to
None of
do a
us
little
do.
reading and try to understand the concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's an L90 concept, there's this one, there's this international IEC 61400, which is the international standard that I found. And I'm not sure of the actual mechanics of how they work or if they're related in any way.
Is that something that you could confirm for us before the next meeting, that if the language is correct?
Yeah.
Or do we need a different language in there?
We can see what kind of research we can do and see if that language is correct, before the next meeting. Thank you.
I would like to also make a suggestion on the number 2 on the setbacks. We had kind of a confusing conversation. We were trying to decide whether the setback should be 4 times the height of the tower or 2,000 feet. And I think I would prefer that we said, go back, we had at one time 4 times the height of the tower or 2,000 feet, whichever is greater. And then somehow we ended up with just 4 times the height of the tower. And I think maybe we should consider going back to the 4 times the height of the tower or 2,000 feet, whichever is greater.
I also caught that too, that it was, we had a great discussion,
Yes,
and then all of a
yes.
sudden the motion was there, and I think we were all ready to move on, and we just nodded our head and accepted. So I too have some
Is that?
questions, and I'm with you that we need to add a set
A minimum.
dimension.
Yeah. And,
And the tower
the reason
height.
I was pushing the tower height thing is because towers are getting bigger.
Agreed,
And, if it gets bigger, then I feel we need a bigger setback.
understood.
And I think we talked about, well, maybe they could get smaller.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's okay to have that.
I think the 2,000-foot minimum is fine.
Is that,
I've even gone, I've rolled this around in my head back and forth, and I'd even, I was on the 2,000-foot band for a while, and I think we need to even go even a little bit stronger with it and go 2,500 feet, and 4 times the height of the tower as a qualifier, so to speak.
I've always been in favor of more setback on that, particularly from a primary structure. I mean, you've got the distance, but then you also got, the sound and the shadow flicker things that all come into play. So whether 2,500 feet is an issue or not versus 200 feet, when you come in you look at the other parameters that have to be considered in setbacks, But I think it would probably help satisfy maybe some of the property owners a little more if we did go to a 2,500-foot minimum setback.
I feel like I'm comfortable with 2,000, and I'm okay with keeping it at that. If it needs to change later, I think it's something we can address in an
I think
application.
now's the time to address it, though, that we're developing these things. I mean, we're not gonna go back and revisit this thing, hopefully, in the near future.
I hope not.
Yeah.
But,
And Russ, when you said, how would you change the language there to influence what you said?
Well, it would just read to have a hard and fast measurement, which it would read, no turbine should be located closer than 2,500 feet or 4 times the height of the tower, whichever is greater. And then that's the only wording that I would change in that paragraph.
So what helped you to get from 2,000 to 2,500? Because I'm still comfortable with 2,000.
Right. And I know if you do the math based upon our knowledge of what our previous applicant had, those were gonna be towers somewhere in that 500-foot range. And when we say towers, Ken, we're assuming that we'll use the assumption that that's total tower plus the tip height is 500 feet. That 4 times plus 50 feet is 2,050 feet. I mean, everybody can, we do the quick math on that.
Wasn't the,
I think there's some protection there. I know we're probably pretty bold in what we're asking for with our shadow flicker, and also our sound. But I think this would match up with those. I think all three would probably play together more closely if we used a $2,500 or 2,500 foot measurement. That's where I came from, that's my reasoning or my justification to jump into that extra 500 feet.
I may be conflating a couple of situations here that are in error. Wasn't the setbacks as proposed by NextEra in the previous project, weren't they listed as 2,000? And that, I believe it was stated in the testimony that that was kind of the industry standard. I would certainly go to 2,000 in our regs, if that's the industry standard. And it didn't seem to bother NextEra at that time. That seemed to be a reasonable thing. My personal preference is to go to 25, but
I think
we ought to be at least 2,000.
I think one point here is that, the thing we need to remember is that, these regulations are to protect the property interests of the landowners within the zoned area, not necessarily to go to what the wind farm industry standard is, which may not be sufficient.
I see no reason why our standard should be less than what the industry standard is.
No, I don't either. And I feel, I agree with Russ that, his logic on trying to, keep the normal setback along with the shadow flicker and the noise things that we've done. We've softened those two a little bit, from the initial draft. And I think this is gonna make it a little more palatable if we can go with a 2,500 foot minimum setback.
I would say, I still feel comfortable with that 2,000-foot setback. I think that we have the ability when we go into actual applications to say it's got to be farther from something. If it, yes, I'm not seeing any real strong reason why we want to add that extra 500 feet at this
No,
point.
I think the regulations we're developing give the developer the guidelines that we're anticipating. So when they come in with their proposals, that's what they're gonna be basing it on. And it's not gonna be done on a prior negotiation necessarily at that point, saying, well, gee, we think we ought to have, that can always be done as a part of the conditional use permitting process. But, they're gonna come in looking at what the regulations say. And, I think we ought to be comfortable with what those are, not, there's always extenuating circumstances for things, yes. But, that's on a rare basis.
I think the key to me was the non-participating piece. The participating landowner or in this process has all of them, for that matter, the way we have it written, they can waive this to whatever they want.
But
we need
not less than the title.
Right, right.
All right, 50 feet.
But what I'm saying is they can negotiate that setback to that. I think that non-participant, now, this kind of goes back to I don't know, it all kind of ties to me, maybe goes back to that notification bubble that we have, that it could be that there's a non-participant that's, didn't get notified. There's an outside chance. I know I'm stretching just a little bit, but that 2,500 feet would be a protection for that piece of that part of it too. So I'm just looking at, they all have the opportunity to waive. So that still kind of rang in my head, and the non-participating rang in my head, and those two things, along with our shadow flicker, along with our noise. It's not, I wish I could say it was a quadratic formula that I've dreamed up on some whiteboard somewhere that I came up with 2,500 feet, but it's not that. It's more of a gut feeling. It's more of a the human aspect diving into this, saying what would be right.
And where you bring up the point of the non-participating property owners, I think this is what this provision is meant to protect them. Because, they've had that land for, decades, possibly generations, and then suddenly their neighbor wants to put a wind turbine on their ground right up next to the property line or, close to their house. Suddenly they have no say in the matter, so we've got to provide some measure
I think you also, though, need to.
reason for setback on
I
that.
think you need to remember, though, that our regulations not only are protection, but they're also to guide development.
right.
And so you have a landowner who wants to develop, so we've got to look at, those are
Yeah.
both, it goes both ways.
I understand.
It's not just.
I understand your point, Lisa. I guess from my point of view, I feel that, yes, we need to provide the regulations for guidance to the developer. But I feel like more of a primary responsibility to the landowners and to protect their property interests.
Well, but there are landowners that are developing as well, so
Yes.
we're protecting their
Yes.
ability to.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we talk about 2,500 feet, what we're really talking about, half a mile.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think half a mile is way too much. I'm comfortable with the 2,000 feet. And as I think through that, I'm still asking myself, how would the language read? Because we're kind of at the 4 times the height. What would the language be?
Well,
Well, it would just, we would add, that, no turbine shall be located closer than 2,500, where the strike through is 1,500 feet, it would read 2,000 or 2,500 feet, or 4 times the height of the tower, whichever is greater, from a participating or non-participating principal building. Am I missing something there? I mean, does that sound right?
Oh, I think that's
All right.
good.
I just want to make sure it sound,
I
the
mean,
way it came out was the way I intended it.
If I owned a piece of land and my neighbor wanted to put a turbine on it, I really wouldn't want it much closer than 2,500 feet. I sit there, I've got where I live, I lease the ground next door to me, and it goes down about a half mile from my house. And so I've got a pretty good visualization as to where that tower might be in relation to, like, my house. And I wouldn't want it that close. But I'm willing to stipulate to a 2,500 foot, deal. I mean,
Do you want a motion?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to move that we change the language to 2,000 feet or 4 times the height of the tower, whichever is greater.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
And I second that motion.
These are really kind of awkward comparisons, though, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
To be equivalent, we'd be talking about a 500-foot tower, which is a long ways off in the distance and in time, I would think, before anything like that would ever be.
well, we already have one.
But I like 2,000 feet.
Been moved and seconded. Staff call the roll.
Seltzer,
No,
Macklin,
Yes?
Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Goodson.
No. Okay. Any other discussion on paragraph 107? I know we talked about, we kind of went back, we started with noise and went backward to the setbacks. Is there any other?
I want to go back to section E, and not arguing with any point there, I'd just like to make sure that I leave this room here with a clear understanding, and we all have the same understanding of the language included in section E. And our associate across the room can maybe give me that quick education, and that we all leave here with the same education, the same level of understanding.
Well, I mean, setbacks from a public airport, private airstrip shall be 2 nautical miles calculated at 12,160 feet from the approach ends of the airport.
I have a question there. If you look at provision E versus provision C, do we have a conflict there?
You do, and that was one of my comments, Mr. Seltzer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to address that now, or is?
We can, if you want.
Yep.
Just to clear that up before Mr. Britton goes back, yeah. So, board, as Mr. Seltzer said, yeah, it's something that we didn't catch. It was one of the changes that I noticed after I reread the document after our November 19 meeting. So, we need to eliminate letter C, which says setbacks from public airports shall be determined by the FAA, because in letter E, we're already determining what the setbacks are from public airports and private airstrips. So letter C should just be eliminated from the document.
Could you add on E, could you add either or and between public airport, private airstrip, so it's not just a slash?
Like an and/or?
Yeah.
Now, Don, are those setbacks, those are in conformity or more generous than FAA requirements, I assume? We don't want to jeopardize any airports if FAA has more stringent requirements.
FAA doesn't require any setbacks.
Okay. That answers that question then.
Okay. And to make this clear to you, sir, it's from the ends of the runway, it's 2 nautical miles. A tower could not be any closer than 2 nautical miles, which is 12,160 feet. And then by 1.5 nautical miles, or 9,120 feet, from the upwind and downwind sides of the runway. So in other words, from the sides of the runway, 1.5 nautical miles, not from the center of the runway, but from the sides of the runway. So it's 2 nautical miles from the ends of the runway and 1.5 nautical miles from each side of the runway.
If you have an airstrip with multiple runways, how is that handled? On each runway?
Well,
I think it'd be.
I would say it would be from the outside edges from the outside runways.
Outside runways, okay.
And
probably
2
have-
nautical
you'd
miles from
probably
the
have
ends, it's, yeah.
You'd probably have overlays of rectangles. If you, just say you have a 45 degree and a 90 degree,
Yeah.
you're gonna be overlaying and finding which,
Okay, well, you use the language there that wonders why do we use what you just said instead of why do we have upwind and downwind sides? Because the wind blows both directions. It might be blowing from north to south and it might be south from west.
Yeah, and on a
Why don't
runway,
we say on each side of the runway rather than upwind and downwind?
this is just the aircraft terminology. This is the proper language.
Oh, okay, I accept that.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a runway that lays north and south, you got 2 miles on each end and 1.5 miles on each side. Now, if you have an airport that has 2 or 3 kind of intersecting runways, depending on which way the wind blows, determines which runway you're going to be. But then those measurements get complicated, don't they?
It's always gonna be one, there can't be any towers within the sides of any runway of a mile, 1.5 nautical miles. And there can't be any tower from the end of any of those runways, no matter how many there is, of 2 nautical miles.
So we really just ought to draw a 2-mile radius around the entire establishment.
No, actually, if you had a single runway, it'd be the length of the runway plus 4 miles, 2 miles in each direction.
Yes.
And the sides of the runway plus 3 miles, 1.5 miles on each side.
But if you have multiple runways,
Well, then that may not be a square or whatever, it'll just be as prescribed.
Well, they would have setbacks.
There'd be some overlay rectangles, so to speak.
Right.
And then you would not have a tower within those boundaries.
Okay, since I raised the question, I understand it. I just hope we all leave here with the same understanding.
Well,
You
there'll
have
be,
another question?
I'm working real hard to keep my mouth shut. So my brain is still confused, so. Depending on which way the wind is blowing determines which runway you're gonna use. So in some cases, the 1.5 measurement may apply, and in some cases, the 2-mile measurement may
No, I
apply.
don't think, no, which runway you're gonna use will make no difference.
Well, why don't we just draw a 2-mile circle around the whole establishment?
because of the length of the runways changes.
The length of the runways, the width of the runways, and besides that, if you had a 2-mile circle, it would not be, it would be too wide on the sides and
And too short.
Depending on which way the wind was blowing.
the wind has nothing to do with it. The runway is just a set runway. The upwind and downwind side is just what side of the runway you're flying on. That's all that
But the
is.
runways are gonna change.
No.
You have multiple runways.
Right. But the setbacks will apply to all of those runways all at the same time, no matter what runway you're using.
Yes, so you might as well just make a 2-mile radius from the center and forget about the 1.5 miles.
No,
Well, nothing's measured from the center of the runway anyway. It's measured from the sides and the
From the
ends.
ends
And the sides.
and the sides.
So it depends on the length and the width of the runway
Right.
is what your actual distances are.
And if there's multiple, it'll be overlaying. It'd be like if you had two
got a
runways.
whiteboard behind you, you want to draw it?
There you go. There we go. The markers.
A visual aid
See how
comes
good
to
you are.
play.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how good, I'm not a very good artist. Okay, runway
I wish you let
one.
Donnie up there do this.
No.
We have runway one, okay? We have runway two. All right, makes sense? All right, we're gonna go, was it
Go 2 miles there.
2 nautical here?
Yeah.
And 2 nautical here. All right, we're going that way. Now we're gonna go, I should have been, no, let's do this different. I like this different, A and B. Because we're gonna put numbers here. We're gonna put 2 nautical this way and 2 nautical this way. All right, so yeah, in essence, we are drawing a circle, with this example, we are drawing a circle.
Yeah.
Or an oblong, because we're gonna go right here, 1.5, this way, 1.5, and this way, 1.5. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna be kind of a, I have a picture in my mind, it's gonna be kind of an oblong affair with this
There'll
example.
be rectangles that
It's gonna be
overlap,
shorter than-
basically.
Yeah, it's gonna be shorter here
Yeah.
and long here. It's gonna be kind of an
But it's
oblong.
gotta be long in a northeasterly, southwesterly
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Division two.
narrower.
And then narrower.
And then
So it's more
narrower.
like a rectangle.
So each runway will have a rectangle
Yes.
around it, and then those rectangles may
But
overlap.
if you have 2 or 3,
Yep, same thing.
the more runways you have, the more complicated
You're
this
gonna
gets.
have, you're gonna have a
it is.
rectangle like this, and then you're gonna have a rectangle like this,
Yes.
then you're gonna have a rectangle like this.
That's why we have engineers.
Yes.
To figure
And then you
this
take
stuff
all
out.
those rectangles and then follow the outside line, and that's the diameter. That's where they have the outside of all those
It would be
lines.
Here.
I think it's easier just to do 2 mile around, draw a circle to do 2 miles, but I will yield to pilot logic here and the FAA, and then never let it be said that I was in conflict with the FAA.
The question I have, Don, and something I thought about later, I'm assuming that the dimension of the width of the runways are on public, are on the record of registry.
I can't answer that for sure. I would think that the measurements of the runway would be.
Okay, I just,
I would not think you could go out there and just claim your whole pasture as a runway.
I know one of the, some of the material that we got, it showed the length of it, but it did not show the width of, or maybe I missed it, maybe I overlooked it, but I wanted to I know that the length was determined on it. And that's part of the biggest, if I was a pilot, I'd sure want to know whether or not that thing was 1,000 feet long or 2,000 feet long so I could land there. Width is a concern. I mean, I understand that piece of it too, but I would think getting her woad would be a whole lot more important to me than, or getting it up in the air would be more important to me than the width that my wheel tracks are. I'm not a pilot, but I'm dumbing it way down here for me so I can understand it. I just want to make sure that we don't have any question further down the line, because we really aren't, if it's a defined measurement, we have it notated by end of the runways, side of the runways, as long as it's got a defined measurement, I'm good with it. I'm not arguing with the distances at all. I just want to make sure that they're clear when we know where to measure from.
And I really only had one question, and that had to do with upwind and downwind. And I fully understand that and accept it.
See what you created, Harley?
That's all right. Before long, we'll get our ground school done with Don's help. Okay, 23-107 continues.
Mr. Chairman, the other thing I was gonna mention right quick, it's not that big a deal, it's a big deal to me, is, throughout the whole document, you know, we kind of interchange words, and I'm very famous for doing that, and I can't stand that about myself. We've got words in here, tower, wind turbine, turbine, and I would like the board's permission, authorization to be able to clean that up to one word. What I would like from this board is, what word would you like me to use, you know, for that? I'd like, instead of saying tower one time and turbine the other time and wind turbine, what should the word be? And then I would like the permission to change it.
Using the word turbine and maybe even putting that in the definition section to say that includes the tower and the blade tip heights. Something like that, so that it's, you know, we just define that in your definition section, and then use that word throughout the document. So I agree that it should be
I agree.
consistent.
Yeah.
I think
I don't know
turbine.
what word it is,
As long as it's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's consistent, everybody understands what it means.
Turbine is my vote.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with the board's permission, I'll go through the document again and change all those other words to turbine, and then we'll add a definition of turbine.
Okay.
Okay,
Super,
thank you.
super.
And why do you want to leave wind off of that? Why don't you want to call it a wind turbine?
I think in the definitions, you could probably say wind turbine to be known as, in the document hereafter, as turbine, just to shorten things up.
I don't necessarily, that's what the board told me to use, but I would surmise that that word is being used in solely this article, which is entitled Wind Energy Conversion System, so I think you could maybe infer that when we say just turbine, we're referring to a wind turbine, but.
I think as long as you put it in your definition, what it means, we're
Yep.
probably okay.
Okay, we'll do that then, and we can take a look at it and make changes from there.
Paragraph 3, we talked about noise already. Paragraph 4, shadow flicker of this, 23-107 is a long, it's a
Like all
long
the
one.
pages.
Yeah, it sure is. So I don't wanna run over or miss something. I'm calling out these sub-paragraphs on this particular one.
Okay, you're on page 23-6.
23-6, number 4 is where that's as far as we've gotten thus far.
Now we're down to item 4, which deals with shadow flicker. Is
Yes.
that where you at?
That is correct.
Okay, some expert needs to explain to me the rationale for going to 30 when we were at 20.
That was what we agreed on.
I'm sorry?
We agreed on that change at our last meeting because that was the industry standard.
I don't recall that I agreed with that, but I might have.
I think there was even a
My
motion.
preference
There was
is,
a motion on that, I believe,
Yeah.
and you might not have agreed to that, it was a split vote, I believe,
Yeah.
Mr. Jorns, yeah.
all right.
Any other comments?
Steve and I voted against a couple of things last time. Maybe that was one of them.
That may have been, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move through subparagraph 5, communication lines. Subparagraph 6, rotor blades. Any comments? Subparagraph 7. Subparagraph 8, lighting.
I say here's where you see we use the word towers, and so those are what I'll be changing.
Does 8A obligate the facility owner to update lighting throughout the life of the project? If a tower or a turbine is installed now and it's using the current best technology for lighting, and 10 years from now, some other better lighting technology is developed, is he obligated, in order to maintain his conditional use permit, is he obligated to make a change, to upgrade?
Not in the regulations. I mean, if there's something in a developer's agreement, then possibly, but not under the zoning regulations, because it's already constructed.
Thank you.
Subparagraph 9.
Under letter C, you see I use a brand new word, a fourth where I use turbine tower, so that'll be changed.
Gotcha.
This is under the authorization of the board, so everybody else agreed to that as well, so.
Any comments there? Subparagraph 10. Subparagraph 11. Well, 13. Section 23-108. Twenty-three 109.
Under number 2A, I've got wind turbine tower, so that's on the top of page 2311, under 2A, so there's another one. And there could be more, these are the ones I just glanced at looking, so just kind of give you an idea of some of the ones that I'll be changing.
23-110.
On the top of that page, Mr. Chairman, you're under number 7 and 8. I need to add a space there, so like I say, minor correction things, but these are some of the things I'll be doing.
Like add a space or move the number 8 up 2 lines or what?
Just put a space between number 7 and number 8. If you see there's no space there, there should be.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Right, see, yeah, I didn't catch
Yeah,
it.
the line right above
Yeah, the line
8
right
should
above.
be a space there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there could be others as I keep reviewing.
Okay. 23-111. Made it through the document. Any other questions or comments on this, on this document?
I feel like it's looking pretty good,
Yeah, we're getting.
other than the fact you keep using different words. Other than that.
Tell me that. Well, I think we were so focused on content and writing it, yeah, and then you start really looking at it again.
Mark, do you have any information? I know at one time, the county commission was going to be working on a template, if you will, of a development agreement. Do you know if there had been any progress made on that?
I have not heard any word from anybody if that's in progress or what. I haven't heard anything on my end.
I'm just curious because, it's been one of my positions all along this process that we have deferred a lot of the corrective information, or sent information to this deferment agreement that is, a negotiated agreement rather than part of the regulations. So that if the applicant fails to comply with the regulations, then, we have no enforcement provisions within these regulations, which I still think is a weakness. I think if we're gonna set the regulations, then we ought to have, okay, here's what happens if you don't follow them. So,
Right, yeah. And I haven't heard anything on that and if one's in development or not.
yeah. So, I mean, that's been the position. I know the rest of the board, we're gonna defer that to the development agreement, but I personally would rather not. But that's, as you all know, it's been my position all along.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion, I guess. Do we need to address sending this back to you or just putting on the table?
So if you wanna make a motion, if you're in agreement, is to accept the changes as presented by staff, and we'll make those corrections and take out the strike-throughs and change the red lines to black, and then we'll make all the other suggested changes as requested by the board.
Next meeting is what, December 17th?
December 17th, so if your motion would include continue to table this until December 17th at 4:30 PM at this office, then staff between now and then will make those changes and do a little bit more research, maybe on the sound, and see what we can
Could I
find.
also ask that when you give us a new draft, you put the date on it so that they all say April edition?
Well, you got the date on this one.
You really,
Oh,
have it
written,
ready?
written, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
the April,
You finally
That's
wised
really
up.
helpful.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm getting there, I'm a little slow, but the April 2016 is the date that we adopted the original zoning regulations, that's why it says that on the bottom.
Yeah,
But yeah, I did,
that's helpful to have the date on it.
That way we know we're looking at the current.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like last meeting when we weren't sure what we were doing.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
I so moved.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded.
Would you repeat that,
You
please?
bet. Okay.
What are we moving?
All right, I'm gonna paraphrase for Mark, but what the motion, Harley, you'll have to help me out here. But, the motion is to table this to the next meeting, which is December 17th, here at the Public Works, for review of the accepted changes that, we've given to staff to make. Am I missing anything, Harley?
No, I don't believe so.
He will have all his turbines changed to towers.
He'll have all his turbines changed to
Towers
towers,
to turbines.
and we'll have a little bit deeper, we'll have a discussion on, the
No more,
noise.
no more red ink will be visible and,
Well, we might still have some, we don't know that yet. We'll find out.
okay.
We'll find out.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Staff, should you call a roll, please?
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes.
Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. Great work, guys and gal. You're nearing the end.
Yeah.
New business. To protect the rights of all parties involved and to give an opportunity for everyone to speak, the Reno County Planning Commission follows a specific procedure outlined in the handouts in your chairs. During the hearing, there will be an opportunity for comments from the applicant, the planning and zoning staff, and members of the audience. Members of the Planning Commission may ask questions or request additional information at any time. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, This case will be presented to the county commissioners within approximately 2 weeks. Mark will notify the applicant of the date. Anyone else who is interested can contact Mark or the county commission for the exact date. Regardless of whether or not the planning commission approves or disapproves of the proposed conditional use permit, it is possible to file protest regarding this decision. Please contact Mark for the process that must be used to file a protest. I will now formally open the hearing regarding case number 2020-13, a request by the John C. Oswald Family Trust, applicant Patsy Levitt, to rezone approximately 14.75 acres of land from R1 Rural Residential District to Agricultural Land District for the purpose of adding this parcel of land to an adjacent parcel of land in order to create one parcel of land zoned ag. The parcel is located on the north side of East 43rd Avenue, approximately 1/2 mile west of North Lorraine Street. Do any of the planning commission members have any conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Do any of the planning commission members have any outside contact with the applicant?
No.
Would the applicant please step forward and state the case? State your name and address for the record.
Sure,
And
and I
you
think
have 10 minutes to present your case. Sorry.
Mark has already presented the case,
I
so,
am windy.
no, I don't need 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm Patsy Levitt, and I'm the daughter of John and Liz Oswald, so I'm a trustee of the trust, and we've owned this land forever, and zoning has changed. We would have been able to sell it, but since the county has changed the regulations in the recent years, you have to have 40 acres to build if the land is zoned agricultural. I have 2 pieces of land that I cannot sell or, do anything with. The one behind Foothill Estates doesn't have now enough front access, even though it did when we purchased it. So we can't sell that as residential. We'd have to get permission from the guy at the end of the driveway and get permission. So it gets very, very complicated. So we want to just combine them at one, so it would be a legal land split if we do sell it. Because at this time, it is unsellable unless someone would use it just for pasture land. And across from Plum Creek Elementary, the chances of someone wanting to put livestock there with all the additional traffic, which is awesome, the school is, it's going to be difficult. So our case is that we just zone it all so it would be a legal 40 acres and we can move forward. Did I give enough facts, Mark? Yeah, I think he outlined it very well.
I hope so.
Do any of the board have any questions for the applicant?
And you're combining this 15 acre tract with the
27
adjacent,
acres,
with the
yes.
adjacent 27
And
acres.
I don't know the reason why it was, but I think when they originally purchased the 14, it did have enough road access that someone could build on it, but it's always been used as pasture land. And so I'm not exactly sure what the difference, it backs up to Foothill Estates, I'm not sure why, but
We're going to find out why it was, because I'm going to ask Mark to answer that question in his presentation. So we will all be educated.
yes.
Well, we all
I don't know about that, but we'll find out.
But anyway, and also the floodplain, it's not in a floodplain, it is in the shaded zone X, and that also creates some difficulty too. So, we just would want to make it the 40 acres, or it's going to be more than that, 44.
Like that.
Yes.
Does the board have any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff, you have your report.
Okay, I'm going to refer to the zoning map that I included in your packet to try and maybe help with my presentation here tonight, board. So it's been about 4 years, I believe, for those of you that have been on the board, I think, since we've done a rezone request. With the way our zoning regulations are set up now, usually we're not doing rezones unless somebody's doing a subdivision development. This case is a little bit unique in the sense that parcel number 30 that's on your map there is a separate tract of land. It's part of the original farm, and so you don't see a fence or anything out there, but when we did our zoning regulations in 2016, we set a parameter of every parcel that is between 3 acres and 39 acres roughly would be zoned residential. Every parcel that was over 40 acres is going to be zoned agricultural. And so because of the fact that this was a separate tract of land, a separate parcel of land, it got zoned residential. And then so when Patsy went to start selling off the farm of her father here, and she split this land, only about 29 acres of that tract was actually zoned agricultural. So what that does is that creates an illegal land division under the current 40-acre minimum here. If you look at tract 25 here, you'll see like a long skinny area that kind of would go out to the other street out there. And I don't believe that that is the intent that she had with the division. I don't believe that that is in existence right now. I believe the original farm has since sold, but for some reason, the appraiser's office hasn't mapped that long, skinny tract that leads out to the road, and that is not in there right now, from my understanding. And so what you're looking at is tract 25 should really be just a big rectangle right now. And it was attached to actually tract 24 at one time, before she decided to start trying to divide off some of the parcels here and sell them into various tracts. And so the situation got created when we changed our zoning in 2016. Parcel number 30 was zoned residential. And so when the split occurred, it created a parcel that was less than 40 acres. When you're less than 40 acres and you do a split after 2016, you create yourself an illegal land division where you can't do any kind of permitting or anything out there. And so the purpose of this request tonight really is just to take that tract of land, number 30, rezone it to ag so she can add it to tract 25, it's on your map there, creating a 40-acre tract of land that now she can sell. As she had mentioned in her presentation, I have not done research to see if tract number 30 is able to be built on. You know, it does not have any frontage right now. And so as she had mentioned, she would have to get an ingress-egress easement from the owner of tract 27, which is only about a 30-foot strip of land that leads up to some other houses that's out there right now. I believe that the tract is considered a legal conforming tract, legal non-conforming tract of land, in the sense that it was created prior to the requirement of the zoning regulations to have frontage. And so if she could establish an ingress-egress easement, we could certainly issue, you know, a permit for somebody to build a house on there. But she would like to go the other way and add this to the rest of that farm land out there and be able just to sell it as a 40-acre tract. And then somebody else can build a house on that tract, should they so choose to.
Wouldn't you still need permission from the guy at the end to do that?
Yes, you would. Yeah, you'd have to establish that. Yeah, you would have to establish that. And, you know, because there's nothing on the deed that appears that there is an established ingress-egress easement. Other houses use that road, and it's an assumption of staff right now that they do have that permission. This tract does not have that permission, so they would have to get that permission, and then we could go from there and, you know, issue a permit for that.
They would have access via 43rd Street on track 25 if these are combined.
If this rezone is approved and then the tract is combined, and she does have a survey showing that is going to be combined, that's her intent. We just have a zoning issue right now to be able to do that, because she can combine those right now, but you're still just dealing with a 29-acre tract of land, even though you would have a 40-acre total tract. Only 29 of that 44 is actually going to be zoned agricultural, so it's still an issue with zoning. It's just one of those things that we run into every once in a while. I mean, that's why we don't do rezones really anymore, because usually you don't have that issue. Here's a situation where we just had a separate tract of land. It's clearly farm ground. If you go out there and look at it, it's farm ground, pasture ground out there. Like I said, there's no fence out there, there's no other structure. You would never know that is a different parcel line that's separating those two out there right now. It just happens that it is. It's a separate 14-acre tract of land that was purchased back in the day. So with that, like I said, we haven't done a rezone in 4 years. A lot of you probably have never been through one in the county, but there are factors that you must consider, just like you do in consideration of a conditional use permit. However, I would say that some of the factors are a little bit different than a conditional use permit, but you as a board still have to consider those factors here, and my report discusses all of those factors in there, and I would be happy to go into more detail with the board if you did have any questions, on that, but staff would recommend approval of this request to rezone that property based on the 10 factors that you see listed in my report. I would mention, for those of you that have not done a rezone or done one in a long time, that you can certainly make a different motion on this if you wanted to, but you cannot attach conditions of approval. So you cannot require Ms. Lovett to do anything if you would want to grant approval of this. Unlike a conditional use permit where you can grant certain factors to make a conditional use permit work for the area, with a rezone, it is either yes, it can be rezoned, or no, it cannot be rezoned. You cannot have other factors or require it to do other things other than just say, yes, it is good to rezone it, or no, it is not. Okay? So with that, no other comments were received by the public. In this particular case, we sent notices to everybody in the county that's within 1,000 feet of there, and you may notice on the map that you have, we only included the properties that were right adjacent to the property here in the city. When you have a situation like this, where you have city-county boundary, statute requires 1,000-foot notification for everybody in the county. It drops down to 200 foot in the city. So that way, we're not notifying 150 people in the city, because it's usually smaller tracts of land. So the dotted line that you see on my map there, once it hits the city boundary, it drops down to 200 feet. So just a little, maybe more information that you want, but just kind of give you an explanation on that end. So with that, I would stand for any questions that the board may have on that.
Sounds to me like this is progress.
We hope so.
Have we established where the ingress, egress activity would occur now?
It would most likely occur on parcel number 27. It's a long, skinny tract of land that is purple in color.
Yes.
If you would want to try and establish an easement, it would be established. That is actually a driveway that leads up to probably 3 or 4
Is that a public thoroughfare?
No, it's private. It's a private driveway.
Just a side note, we had someone contact that owner because we had someone interested, and he wanted $10,000 for them to make his driveway much, much better before he would agree to letting them use the driveway.
There you go.
But you still have no,
We have no way to do it, no, we
you have
don't
no
have.
ingress, do you have a plan? I mean, you have a potential, something in mind for,
someone
if
could
you can't
build
use
on-
27?
No, sir, but someone could build on the other, has enough access over if they would want to.
So by combining
Wouldn't it-
25
By
and
combining them, yes, sir.
25 and 30, and then you have egress onto 43rd
Yeah,
Street.
then you
Yeah,
have
25 and 30.
And then they could
You
build
come
back in
off-
there if they
You
want.
could come in off 43rd Street
Right.
into the
Yes, yes.
25 and hook around and go back
If they want.
back in there, but that's kind of a long way around.
Yeah, it is, but they could if they had a desire to build in that area of the parcel.
They could build wherever they wanted.
Yeah, at that point, yeah. They probably wouldn't, but yeah, but they could. They would have their access off of 43rd, and then there's no more issue with needing an egress easement.
And I'm sure tracks 29, 31, and 32 are separate owners, they're already, they're different ownership. So now you're gonna have ag in their backyard.
They've really always had
They've always
ag in the
had it there.
backyard.
Yeah, right over here, these
Yeah.
people do have cattle right now because that's what is this what he's talking about, Mark, over here?
No, over here. These 3 tracks.
Oh, those are just small little
Yeah.
houses, yeah.
Yeah, they're all separate owners. I was looking at my
Yeah,
notification
sorry.
sheet. Yeah.
Did you say they're cattle in tract 30 now? Is it fenced and pastured? And
Mine isn't, I'm sorry, the one I have isn't
Oh,
labeled.
yeah, she doesn't have the,
I'm
she
so
doesn't have
sorry.
the numbered one, so
I have a
she's talking
purple
about
one.
you. I'm sorry.
He's talking over here.
She's talking here. Is there cattle in there now or pastured?
We sold all the cattle, but it is all pasture land,
it's
yes.
fenced, so it could be,
Around the whole perimeter, not in between these two, just behind Sequoia Street. And then, clear over this way. So more of a big square around the 40 acres, 44 acres. Because it's always been used as agriculture, even though that 14 was zoned residential. It was never used as residential.
Theoretically, I really want to be supportive of this activity, but there's something going on in my mind that says the law of unforeseen, unintended consequences is going to come back to bite somebody here, and I'm not sure why, and I can't come up with a good example, but for some reason, I'm getting a red flag that there may be further ramifications. I don't know.
Well, but
I don't know. I can't think of an example, and I don't have
your
one.
concern is that residential goes to ag.
I'm not hearing you. I'm sorry.
Your concern is that residential piece becomes zoned ag, but I think the intention would be that it could be sold and then it could be developed as residential.
Yes,
Is
yes,
down the
yes.
road.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And it's always been used as agricultural, so it wouldn't,
Trying to tie it all together now.
Clean it up a little
Yep.
bit.
yes,
Yeah, I
clean
mean,
it up is a good word.
It's very possible that we could see a rezone in the future if somebody buys that for a residential development, in which we'll be right back here rezoning a 40-acre tract and doing a subdivision unless they would annex it.
When we did the rezoning, and we talked about 40-acre tracts, I had in my mind nice little square parcels, and as opposed to a multi-sided, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided tract of land here. So this is,
Well, like I say, the part on the east side of the picture there, that's in an error in the appraisal. So you don't have a long skinny driveway essentially into the trees.
Going over to
I
the.
believe the owner that purchased the original farmstead purchased all the way down to,
They did, there was a change in the legal description and it didn't get recorded right and we passed the deadline, so, but he owns all that.
so
You're
he
right.
owns all, so yeah, he just.
Parcel 24 was originally part of parcel 25,
Yes, sir.
and though that was sold off at some
Yes,
early.
that's correct.
earlier.
Yeah, the original farmstead included this down here, and then the other, the one in question was a separate tract of land, but yeah, so she's in the process of selling off some of her father's land right now, and so, yeah, so she has sold the farm, and that line actually goes down to the R1 that you see to the south, even though you see it mapped as about a 60 or 100-foot
It
strip of
was
land.
219 contiguous acres, but no one could afford, I mean, that's a big piece of property, so the farm sold with 54 acres, yes, sir. So now we have to sell the,
rest of it.
yes, sir.
Will this, I'm asking silly questions here. Now we're gonna have 28, property 28 and 26 kind of out there. They're gonna be R1 and in between, and surrounded by ag. Is that gonna be a challenge or problem in any form? Do we need to consider possibly rezoning them as well, or changing that?
We would not be able to rezone those tracts of land because they
Or
don't,
asking the people if they wish to,
they won't meet
they won't meet the 40 acres.
acre minimum, and they would not be able to subdivide further because of the fact that we need to have public road access, and so it'd be very difficult to subdivide those further just for the fact that we need to have public road frontage. Kind of the same situation that Ms. Love is running into right now with this tract of land.
Trying to work my way through the unintended consequences here.
I mean, like I say, we very well could in the future see a petition to rezone this all back to residential for a subdivision potentially. But for right now, we need to get this to a 40-acre tract of land so she can sell it to somebody and they can continue to farm it, or if they're a developer, they can choose to develop it, in which case they would either probably annex into the city or they would do a petition for a rezone in the county. Because right now, as you had heard, the tract under consideration right now is gonna be very difficult to purchase and buy, but for the fact that the gentleman that owns the easement wants $10,000. The other 29 acres is an illegal land division, and unless you're just gonna farm it, you're not gonna be able to get a permit for houses or other structures, so.
Any other questions for staff?
Are all the houses the residences, their numbers 1 through 17, are they all supplied with city water or city sewer at this time?
Well water, city sewer.
I'm sorry?
Most of them are well water, city sewer.
Well, water, city sewer, thank you.
And they love having the field in the back. You know, I mean, that's a selling point, not to have neighbors in your backyard. So those homes are very, very popular because they love having pasture land. Nobody behind you.
Right.
Any other questions for staff? Last call. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to make comments?
You
The
know,
audience is pretty slim to none. It's Patsy and it's it.
Them, so let's see if other property.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, sir,
No,
not.
I already commented.
Thank you very much.
I have no rebuttal comments.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have no
You have
rebuttal. I have no
Oh,
rebuttal.
all right, gotcha. Okay. I'll close, any other comments from the board?
Well, I wish to salute Ms. Levitt for handwriting the legal description down here at the bottom. Looks like
noticed that
that was a daunting task, right?
Vince and theirs. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion from the board?
I would make a motion I move that case number 2020-13, request by John C. Oswald Family Trust requesting rezone from the Reno County zoning regulations of 14.75 acres of land from R1 Rural Residential District to AG Agricultural District be approved based on the 10 factors listed in the staff report and as heard as this public hearing.
Second that.
Moved and second, any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Seltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes,
Jones?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Gertson?
Yes.
Thank you, Patsy. It'll probably be December the 8th in front of the county commissioners. We have a 14-day protest period that we gotta
Sure.
wait, but I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you, Patsy.
Thank you.
Staff, do you have any other business to put before this board?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
None? 6 o'clock, that's pretty darn good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.